off, I just want to say I like the setup of your podcast, by the way. It's
Thank
awesome.
you.
I like that we prior to going live, we had a little pep talk about how kind of the vibe you're going for and the angle you do. I like that a lot, very much. It almost makes me think, damn, mine is just like very loose format. My podcast, the Immigrant section, is just like sometimes I get an immigrant on and we just talk about whatever the hell, and sometimes it's just a white person and we talk about whatever the hell. So I like that you try to keep it that angle. That's actually really cool.
Welcome to the Immigrant podcast. Today we have a special guest with us, Abbas Wahab. He's also a podcaster and he talks about the Immigrant section. So you can definitely go ahead and check his podcast as well, called the Immigrant section.
Thanks for having me, Anik. How are you?
I'm great. We're trying our best with the quarantine and staying positive.
Yeah, I mean, I'm speaking from a basement right now, so I'm doing my best.
Are you having the podcast live right now in the basement? This is really like what people picture when you have a podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I record video on mine, so if you ever check out my podcast, you'll see it's a 2-chair setup, and I'm sitting in my chair right now, but all the lights are off. So
okay.
I'm going audio only today.
Yes, audio only. So that's amazing. So right now you're in Toronto. Do you want to talk a little bit about yourself? Like, where you from? If you immigrated, like when did it happen?
Yeah, cool. As far as my backstory, I'm from Sudan. I was born in Sudan, now North Sudan. I moved to Canada when I was in first grade, 6 years old. I studied all of grade school and high school in Canada. I got an engineering degree, as immigrants must. It is the law.
Yeah.
Right? I got my engineering degree, and then I moved to the United States for 3 years working as an engineer. And during that time, I started doing open mic comedy at night for quite some time. And then about in my third year in the States, the company went bankrupt. I lost my visa and I had to move back to Canada. This was in late 2017, about 3 years ago, pretty much 3 years ago exactly. And when I moved back to Canada, I said, screw engineering. I never really wanted to do engineering. I just thought that I must do engineering. You know, I was
did it for your parents, right?
Exactly. You know, they had me convinced. You know, for engineers, it's very typical. For immigrants, it's very typical to have the expectations of you're either an engineer or a doctor. Choose one.
Yeah, it's like 4 jobs. I think lawyers, tax, accountants, engineers, doctor.
Yeah, but if you had to choose 2, I think we know what the 2 would be, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, doctors and engineers are definitely the best. Yeah, you're right.
So that being said, growing up, if someone asked me, why do you want to be an engineer? I would tell them, well, I don't want to be a doctor. So like I literally had in mind, because I moved here when I was 6, and the whole mindset for immigrant parents is security. How do we get these kids into a secure role? Because we moved here chasing security. All we want is security. How do we pass the beacon forward? How do we instill security in them? We push them towards these professions, like being a doctor, being an engineer.
Yeah, because they had a different reality, you know, like you mentioned, it's really security they are looking for. They immigrated for that, to find better jobs, better lives. And us, when we're growing up here, we already have the kind of security a little bit. We also have much more choices when we come to countries like Canada, USA, like UK, North countries, I will say. We have choices. So our mentality like gets to be a little bit different in the long run, you know, but their goal was to find security. And unfortunately, they can't do it, some of them, because they got older, so they cannot work or change career, like start all over. Some of them do. But when they can't, what happened? They want their kids to do it. So they transfer their goal to their kids.
Exactly. I mean, take my father for an example. Very educated. He studied, he graduated from Sudan and he got scholarships and he got his MBA in Holland, in Europe. And he worked as a minister of finance in Oman, in the Middle East. despite all that, when we came to Canada, everything was denied. Nothing was recognized. Fast
Exactly.
forward, driving a cab for 15 to 20 years with super highly educated surgeons and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
It's the story been told over and over. And that was my dad. So obviously they wanted to instill doctor engineer. Fast forward,
Yeah.
I do it. I achieved their dream, and I just don't like it. It was never meant for me. I was always the class clown from a kid. I was always obsessed with stand up. I was always meant to go down this path, but I was just sold on that idea of, oh, I'm going to be an engineer. I'm going to be an engineer. I didn't even know what an engineer does. I was just saying, oh, I'm going to be an engineer. What do they do? I don't know. I'm going to be one though. So essentially for the last 3 years, I have done no engineering. I focused entirely on just my creative pursuits. So I do stand up. I mean, obviously this is pre-pandemic. I would do stand up every night. I had my podcast going and do a little jobs here and there to keep my hours open so I can remain creative. So pretty much I took a big U-turn in my life just as far as creativity is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
To get away from engineering and just focus more on this road of essentially trying to be a professional comedian.
Yeah, like following your passion, and that's amazing. Honestly, it takes guts to really do that. And my next question definitely would be, how did your parents react?
Well, of course, they thought, well, see, this all lined up with my brother passed away 6 months before this whole thing, me moving back to Canada. So
Okay.
when he passed away, I was like, and I went back to the office already not liking engineering.
Hmm.
And it really didn't make sense. Then I was like, what the fuck am I doing? You know what I mean? Because now mortality was in my face. I knew
Mm-hmm.
if your brother 1 year older than you dies, you
Okay.
think, oh my God, I never thought my siblings would pass away. Now I could die. And if I
Okay.
could
Yeah.
die, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Who is this for? I'm already doing comedy at night and I love it. But I'm thinking, at this point, I was thinking, oh, I'll do comedy and engineering for 5 or 7 years. And then when I'm good, I'll transfer just to comedy. This was my little plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then when that happened, I was like, no, that doesn't make any sense at all. So essentially, I was so unhappy at work. I used to work in Michigan at this time. And I was thinking, oh, you know what the problem is? Michigan. Michigan is the problem. Not this job, not this career. It's Michigan. So I was like, let me go to California. Let me move to San Francisco. So I got a job in San Francisco. And I moved to, like Silicon Valley is in San Mateo, like the Bay Area has Silicon. So I went to go work there. And that's when I realized, oh, it's this job. It's not wherever you are. The location has nothing to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
6 months down the road, the company goes bankrupt. I lose the job. So the universe throws this opportunity into my lap to reset, to move back to Canada and make it. Do I just jump back into an engineering role or no? So at this point, my parents were like, okay, they expected me to get an engineering job. And at this point, I was pretty vocal about being like, this is not for me. But obviously they're thinking, he's crazy. His brother passed away. He's having an emotional thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like it's a time. Yeah, it's gonna pass.
Yeah, he's losing it. Oh, yeah, exactly. Oh, he's you know what? Someone's family member passes away and they do something drastic in their life. They're thinking, oh, you know what I mean? Oh shit, right? They
Totally.
lost it. They lost it. They broke,
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what they attributed to. But time went on and I was like still so obsessed with it. I was driving like crazy trying to do open mics and shows. I would drive to Toronto from London, my hometown, when I moved back to Canada, and like do shows all night, drive back. Like I would drive 5 hours and do shows all night, and it'd be a 5-hour round trip. And
Wow.
and they still were like, what are you doing? You're crazy. Go back to engineering. How do you have a degree and you're not using it? You're stupid. That was the kind of the vibe, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then what happened, ironically enough, was I got into acting and I booked a McDonald's billboard where I was biting into a sandwich for McDonald's all through Canada. It had nothing to do with
What?
comedy, but them seeing me on a billboard, they stopped
Yeah.
asking all the questions. They're like, "Oh, he's doing something. Look, he's on a billboard for McDonald's. It has nothing to do with comedy." You know what I mean? Nothing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But as far as they could look up and point to something and be like, "That's what our son. That's what he's doing."
Exactly. They want to show other people like what their son is doing. Yeah.
As soon as they could show that, all the questions stop.
Mhm. Wow.
And
Wow, that's crazy.
yeah, and now they still bring it up. It was 2 years ago, and like they're like McDonald. I'm like, yeah, okay, that was 2 years ago. That had nothing to do with um that had nothing to do with merit. Rather, McDonald's just needed a black face to use
Mhm.
to sell burgers. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah. You need to fill in the space.
Yeah,
Yeah. And then you
exactly.
took it
And they're
as
like,
your
whoa,
opportunity.
it legitimized me big time in their
Mhm.
eyes.
Yeah, that's very true. It's a good point that you brought up. It's like sometimes they just don't understand what we want. Like, because there's also time that comes as a conflict. Like, it's a new time, new things are coming up. Like, even the jobs are changing. We need new skills as well, and they just didn't follow these evolution in society. I guess because it's not their time. It's not their fault. So sometimes there's that glitch between our parents and us. They just don't understand what we're talking about. So when we say like we want something different, want to do something completely different, they don't get it, and they fear, like they're afraid that we don't succeed and we don't have that security, and then we just fall off on society.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
as a
Huge
parent,
fear.
totally can understand that. But at the same time, the only thing I always tell my parents, I'm like, if you don't know, it's okay, but like let me teach you at least. Can you be like open-minded, at least receive some new information? Because that's when the problem is really like, it's because they close themselves. They're
They're
like,
set
this
in
is
their
not
ways. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like it's not my way, so it's not good. But there are plenty of other ways, like in life, and I agree with them. The fact that the four jobs, like it's more secured, but at the same time, there are a lot of lawyers that don't have jobs right now because there are too many lawyers in the industry, especially like in Montreal. I don't know for Toronto, but it's very tough out there, like as a lawyer,
Oh,
and
especially in the United States, it's extremely oversaturated.
exactly, it's oversaturated, and even engineers too. Like you still have to work your way through things. So what the really big difference between like our parents' generation and us is that we really focusing on passion. As of them, it was like that's the job that's available.
Security.
We just want to take it. Yeah,
Security first. There was no concept of passion,
yeah.
and it's
Passion
still
did not
difficult.
exist.
It's
Yeah.
still difficult to totally explain that, and it's one of those things where, like, till this day, my brother-in-law, my older sister's husband,
Hmm.
he goes to me, Abbas, Abbas, I we have cousins in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Bahrain. They make 12,000 US a month, no tax. What are you thinking? Like, and I'm like, every time I'm like, yo, I don't care about the money. I've made a lot of money and it doesn't do anything for you. Money does nothing for you. And I had to make it to realize that.
Yeah, exactly. Because what makes you happy at the end of the day? Is it the money? Because you might have any number of money, any amount of money, and you're still not happy. And
If you
like
wake up in the morning and you hate what you're about to do, who cares how much money you have? That is the worst feeling in the world. It doesn't matter how much your
exactly.
salary is. It literally doesn't matter. And some people, like, it's always the house always looks nicer from the outside, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It always looks beautiful. Like there's always a lot of envy around. Like, whoa, that's your salary, that's your car. Your life is so good. It's like
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing a job where I'm going against the grain. I have to not say the things I want to say to live. I have to
Mm-hmm.
dance the dance and juggle the ball in a way that is killing me to live. I can't.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I used to work for this company that would send me to China all the time to work. I would oversee, like in San Francisco, I would oversee the launch of a product in China. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be in China working stupid hours. And like, I would be like, hey, the team would want to go. The team would want to break their backs for this company that has no interest in their longevity. The company only has interest in launching this product, and this team is killing themselves to achieve that. And I'm like, for who? Who is this for? And I just remember at times I would voice some concerns, and like the VP of operations, who was my boss, would just come down at me and be like, I will not have you jeopardize the morale of this team. And you have to like put your tail between your legs, because that job is paying your rent and your lease payment. You cannot voice your real concerns because you've depend on this job for your lifestyle. And that's the worst feeling in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, you're 100% right on that. Like, definitely money helps. We do need to pay the rent and everything, but you have a good point here. It's like it has to stick with your values. That's how I explain it. I don't often say like money is not important. Like we need money. We need it to eat. Sadly,
to a certain point. To a certain point.
Exactly, for certain points, and then we just have to make sure it aligns. Our values are aligns with what we do.
Exactly.
That's right. How I like really phrase it, because really some people are like, yeah, they always use the argument, yeah, but you need money, you wouldn't be able to pay your rent, like, and it just needs to be aligned. And also, as you mentioned earlier, like you wanted to do like your engineering job just for security, and then after on the sides you do comedy and stand-ups. Like a lot of people do that. They do like a job to pay the rent, and then after they do their passion like on the side until the passion can pay the rent, you know?
Is when you accept a huge salary and like kind of a role that's a senior role, right? So
yeah,
it's so mentally taxing. It is so, you can't just be involved. Like your brain is working, it's overclocked all day for 8 hours or 9 hours, and you get out of the office and your job doesn't stop. The emails are still going, the calls are still going, and somehow I'm supposed to switch to funny mode, and like you can only do that so long. You only have so much bandwidth in your mind, and you have to, at some point you have to decide. It's like, where am I going to focus my energy, because I'm going to burn myself out at this rate.
That's very true. You brought up a good point here, because like it takes time. Like your full-time job, they really take as much time and as much as they can from you, because they're paying you. Yeah.
I know a lot of roles where when you leave at 5 or 6, you leave at 5 or 6. That's it. The job stays at 5 or 6. That's not the job you have as a program manager for a tech company.
That's true.
That's not the nature of the role, that you just leave, and that's not what it is. And the salary reflects that. So at first glance, you're like, whoa, look at all this money. Yeah, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And then you're like, oh, you're losing it. You're like, what is the point of this? Because you know what I found myself doing? I would try to make the most money possible. I would try to jump companies to make the most money possible. And then all of the money that is in excess of what I need to live, you know, like paying your rent, paying your lease, your car, paying whatever you need to pay, all of that net positive money, my focus would become, okay, now how do I grow this money as fast as possible? So my life became just money focused. How do I get the most money? And then how do I inflate and grow this money? Okay, I'm going to try to find an apartment to buy. And okay, I'm going to try to flip this apartment. Okay, I got to get a portfolio going. How do I grow this? And I'm like, what the hell am I doing? What is this all for?
Yeah.
What is this all for? You know, like, can I take this money to the grave with me?
Yeah.
So you just get to that point. And luckily for me, it's really difficult to just step away from something like that, because it's like a wave in your whole security and your standard of living. But like I said, me getting let go from that company was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it was just like the universe handed it to me in my lap. Exactly, it was a decision I might have not have made by myself.
Yeah. It's like, you can't make the decision. Here you go. We're going to make it for you. Yeah.
And that's what the beauty, I think, is for the masses. When this pandemic hit in March, everyone got that. Everyone got that feeling where it's like, yo, here's your reset. If you're doing something you really don't like doing, there's no more excuse.
Yeah, you know? That's so true.
Here's your opportunity to reset.
Exactly, and everybody now is trying to find like an online business. They're learning, and it's difficult as well because you need to learn everything on your own. Like working for a company with for someone, like they already have a structure, and like it's much easier once you start on your own. Everything is like it's new. You need to learn everything, so it comes with personality as well. Like you have to like you have to really like
Want
we
it.
have yeah you have to yes we have to be honest with that. Like it takes a personality to do this. Not everybody can, and I'm sure some people, they might be unhappy in their jobs, but they just don't have the guts. Just like I mentioned to you in the beginning, I was like, you the guts to do that, you know. And they also don't have the personality, and we were not educated like that, because especially like I don't know, in immigrant families especially, like the education is really like you follow the rules, you you
Don't make problems, don't make waves.
exactly, you don't have a problem with the white people. You
Absolutely, yeah.
you do your thing and then you come back home, you know. And so that's how we were educated, or a lot of us. I'm pretty sure some people had a complete opposite education than that, but many of us from many different countries and cultures, it's often like that. It's just like you do your thing and then you finish school, you find a job, you find yourself a girl or a guy, and then you get married, you have your house,
Oh, there's a
you have your
playbook.
children.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. It's a playbook. Everything is already prepared. So it takes a huge personality to just decide to start doing new things, and you have no idea what you're doing.
Absolutely, but if you have this passion inside you, and it really depends. Like I think it's like if that feeling of fear towards trying something new, fear of jumping over the ledge into something new, if that fear is less than the angst you have in the morning for the job you do, then you're never going to do it. You gotta truly hate the thing you're doing. If you're in kind of something that's like dilly-dally, you can just be an autopilot forever, and that's fine for some people. It's just you can't. For so long, I would look at the masses to dictate what I did. Okay, what's everybody else doing, and let that inform me on how I should act. And now it's like, fuck all that. Let me just ask myself, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? And take it from there. And thank God this pandemic, the Canada Emergency Relief Benefits, CERB, and now CRB, has literally funded. If you are an artist, there's no excuse these last 8 months. The government has Justin Trudeau has personally funded each one of us artists who are struggling, that would be like, I can't do art and do a full-time job. Well, the pandemic happened. There's your money for rent for 8 months. Here's your opportunity to create. Yeah,
I did not know that.
You probably kept your job working from home throughout, correct?
Okay, yeah, yes, that's why. Okay, yeah.
A lot of people lost their jobs because companies had to downsize. They couldn't just have their jobs. So Canada had a emergency relief benefit, and it's still got a recovery benefit. So don't pay you a cent. Obviously, it's taxable income. You owe tax on it next year, but it's like
yeah. I knew it for some job and some employees, but I didn't know there was one like specific for artists. And
no,
I guess
no,
for
not specific for artists.
Okay,
See,
okay.
In these, what I used to do for money was acting. I would MC weddings and some stand-up. That's how I would pay my rent.
Okay.
And if you lost your income due to COVID, then you make you meet some other prerequisites, then you meet the standards to get this thing. And you can't have weddings. The acting industry stopped forever. So it's like a lot of artists are pretty much in this boat. As long as you made $5,000 for the whole year in that thing. It's like very minimal requirements for it, essentially. But the point is, it's another one. It is just a blessing in disguise, where it's like I've been able to go fully creative for these last all this pandemic pretty much, and the government has picked up the tab. And
definitely,
to be honest, I'm just now at the point where the money is insufficient, and I'm like, okay, I need to get a part-time job. You know what I mean?
What am I gonna do? I need to go work for Walmart.
Well, that's the thing. Now that's the thing. It's
for the
like
groceries,
I can't find a part-time engineering role because that's not really a role that happens.
Yeah, and a lot of engineers too. Some of them got cut because I know the suppliers. If they don't have any more contract with the suppliers, then they're cutting the engineers, especially in the operations.
The business still has to operate profitably one way or another, you know. So whether it's cutting you or whatever they have to do to survive, so a lot of people did lose their job. But now I'm in a boat. I'm literally now in a very strange boat where I'm like, okay, financially right now, this benefit will stop. What can I do? What skills can I leverage for money to, stay afloat if I can't MC weddings? What can I do? And it's tough out there because there's no really part-time engineering roles. So it's like I have some friends with startups. It's like, can I offer them something? Because I still invest a lot of time doing the creative stuff I do. So I if I did a full-time job right now, and I have a girlfriend, so it's like if I had a full-time job and I was doing the creative stuff, it's like you only have so many hours in the day, right? So you have to pick and choose.
Exactly. Yeah. You can't have a relationship and then full time and then working on your passion, and it takes a lot of time.
You have to
you won't be sleeping.
Yeah, you have to pick and choose. Like I would love to do all three, but it's like you have to pick and choose. And I love my girlfriend, so she's not gonna go anywhere, right? So, and I love my creative work. So though, like your mission, like there's an amazing quote by Naval Ravikant, who's like a self-made billionaire Indian immigrant. And he goes, health, love, and your mission. There's nothing else. There are no other things in your life. Health, love, and your mission. So align what you do with what you love. Have love in your life. And obviously health is financial and physical well-being, right? So it's like, how do you juggle those things and stay sane and stay fulfilled? And that is where I'm at right now.
Yeah. Totally understand you, because the pandemic, like there are some positive sides, but also there are a lot of challenges. Like for example, me, like I can do 1 week at my house just working on my creatives and doing podcasts like that, and I don't even realize that I did not go out of not even in my balcony. And I'm
That's
like,
crazy,
how do I stay safe? Yeah, but I'm so passionate with it. I don't realize it's like my parents don't call me, or if I don't make the effort, or if I don't have any reasons to go out, especially I work from home, I'm not going out. I'm just going to find myself stuff to do to get busy. So that's a challenge as well. And then the other thing the pandemic like help us understand is that everybody's affected. Everybody's impacted by the pandemic. And a lot of jobs that, let's say, if you go back to the immigrant parents mentality, like if you're an accountant, engineer, or lawyers and everything, like everybody is in the same boat, apart from the doctors, obviously. We still need them, especially in the pandemic. Workers. Yeah, the frontline workers. Yeah, and then the nurses and like we have a lot of, and also the janitors. Like we have a lot of frontline workers. But other than that, so many other jobs are impacted by the pandemic. So the lesson that we need to learn is the definition of security that's different. It's new. 2020 is teaching us that security is really like, I don't know, should we save more money? Should we do more like investing, portfolios? Like, I think that's what we need to start thinking now. It's like the new definition of security, like how we need to prepare ourselves, like if another pandemic happens. And there were a lot of pandemic before, like in 1918, if I'm not mistaken,
like the Spanish flu.
Yeah, exactly. But at the time, the market was not the same thing. Like the prices and inflation, it wasn't the same thing. Like you did not have a huge mortgage at the time. So all these things we need to like just re-educate ourselves on that and just redefine things, I guess. What do you think about this?
Without a doubt, I think there's no debate here that a rainy day fund is absolutely necessary. And we didn't even know what that rainy day, it was just called a rainy day fund. Now we're going to call it a pandemic fund. Fund. Now we need a name for a pandemic. And businesses are going to change too, because I've worked for a lot of corporations. They never had a pandemic readiness plan. But mark my word, every business is now going to have, as part of like your workplace health and safety or ISO certification, what have you, they're going to have requirements for a pandemic action plan in the event of something like COVID, right?
Yeah, definitely. And insurance is, honestly, right now we're seeing that the government is really the one helping companies, small business and people. But like insurance is so far, I don't see how they help.
Yeah, I mean, when everyone is affected, insurance you know, I can. You're not swearing, so I feel weird when I'm swearing. But insurance, when everyone gets fucked, insurance doesn't care.
Yeah.
When a flood comes and ruins everybody's house, nobody gets paid.
That's when they're like, oh no,
Yeah, it's an act. Yeah,
it was not included.
It's an act of God, so they'll say. What isn't an act of God? What isn't? If you believe in God for the sake of this contract, say we do not cover acts of God. What is not an act of God? What is not an act of God? So forget insurance companies. I think really the focus, and I'm very fortunate just because I'm living this artistic life. I had to do this out of necessity as soon as 2018 happened and I moved to Toronto to focus on stand-up. I had to minimize my living expenses and live as far below my means as possible just to get by with the minimum income that I'm having. And that really served me when COVID hit.
Okay.
So more so than it is, you need to have all these savings. We need to get to, people really need to focus more on just living below your means. Because I remember back in the day, for those years that I worked, it's very if you get a big promotion, you might, guess what? No, not even. Like, I'm talking about like middle-aged people. If you get a big promotion, guess what happens? We're redoing the kitchen, right? If you get a big promotion, we're going to upgrade our car lease. As soon as you get promoted, as soon as you make more money, you adjust your lifestyle proportionally. You keep taking one step more money, one step, and that is the trap. So you never are living more comfortably. You're always right on the edge. So if people just continue to progress in their career and maintain the same lifestyle, that's the best thing you can do for yourself.
Yeah, that's really amazing what you're saying right now, because it's our capitalist system, you know? Like, we always want more. We have money, we want to buy and spend more. It's just the way it works. But we don't focus on like developing more skills. Like, a lot of people just like, they have their work, they have the security, and they're good. Like, that's it. And they have more money, they get their promotions, and they're still good. But I think that pandemic like really is teaching us a lot, especially like we have more time to learn new things as well, like to develop our skills, because not only, like you said, if we have a promotion and we want to improve our day-to-day or lifestyle or what we already have, but also we spend a lot of time just going out and not focusing on which is good. We need fun in our life.
Yeah, exactly. I actually see the value of that. I see the value of experiences. I think the one thing you can spend money on with no regrets is travel.
Yes, definitely. I'm not against traveling or having fun on anything, but I'm really thinking about myself. Like, in January, I was never home. I was just never home, which is like, it's not like I was doing different experiences. Like,
no, you're going from cafe to cafe.
Cafe, restaurant to restaurant. That's the type of thing I'm saying. Like, if it's a new experiences, like traveling new places and stuff like that, I'm all for it, you know? But at the same time, if you check your bank account and your expenses on it, I was checking my credit card and it was all like restaurants, and some of them were like the same restaurants like 5 times in 2-3 days.
Yeah. Oh, I remember the exact same thing back in my corporate days. I would just take a look, because once you make a certain amount of money, you give yourself a pass in your head. Like, I'm good.
You don't even check the amounts anymore. You're like, I have this money. I could just go until your card says no, type of thing. Yeah.
Yo, I remember in San Francisco, I was spending $2,000 a month just eating out.
I know.
$2,000 a month. Whereas now I have maybe a $400 monthly grocery. Maybe. You know what I mean? Because I'm living to my means, right? Like, I'm trying to live below my means, just so when shit like this happens, I have breathing room. Because it's like, even if you don't have, if you're saving like really good, like you're saving well, that's awesome. But guess what? If you have 3, 4, 5,000 of monthly expenditure just to maintain your standard of living, savings get burned quickly, right?
Yeah. That's amazing. I think, that's a really good angle. So now we focused a lot on like work and passion and everything. Now, going back to the immigrant experience, do you have anything you want to share with us? Immigrant, just socially, like meeting people, like, do you stick with people from your culture only? Do you have like friends that are from diverse backgrounds? Like, how is it just integrating into the new culture? Did you face like new challenges or not? Like, how was your experience? Some people they have it good, some people they just have a super bad experience.
I would say I had a really good experience. I had a
Mm-hmm.
really good experience. I grew up in London, Ontario. 85, 90% white people, but I grew up in a very like a bubble of an Arab pop community
Okay.
because I was raised
Uh-huh.
very aggressively Muslim. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
So I'm like in the masjid, the mosque, that community, all that stuff. But for so
Mm-hmm.
many years, I really just wanted to not be different. If my mom called me, I would step away so my white friends wouldn't hear me speak Arabic. You know what I mean? So I
Mm.
really just didn't want to be different. Look, I'm just like you. I just don't want to talk about anything related to me learning Quran or anything. I really wanted to be like the white kids that I was around.
You kept it private. Like anything that has to be with your culture was private.
Exactly. I wouldn't let them over to my house because there'd be bahur smoke. My mom doing like smoke, the foreign smell. I was so scared of people coming and judging. I was so afraid of judgment for so long. Even though the life
Uh-huh.
itself was totally fine, it was internalized fear of judgment, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then at one point, once I really embraced this creative path, I realized that all of my exact story as it went, my exact experiences literally shaped me. And now if you continue to try to create an image of what you think is funny,
Mm-hmm.
it never hits the same as if you just tell your story how it happened.
Okay.
So live and talk about my experiences how they were. Now that I'm really leaning into the whole immigrant thing because I am a tried and true immigrant. I had all these
Mm-hmm.
immigrant things I ran away from, and now I embrace them fully. And when I embrace them fully, I find my audience more and more. There's so many people in the same shoes as me, and I'm telling jokes that they totally get, but they just haven't seen somebody do a joke about again.
Okay.
Like
Okay. So like they can also connect with you easily. Like with
exactly.
a true connection.
I'm able to resonate with people. Like before, when I first got into comedy, I really would try to sit there and think, what's funny to me, and let me depict that in my stand up. Let me depict that in funny videos I make, right?
Mhm.
But now I realize just sharing my actual immigrant experience is the funniest thing of all. I don't have to sit there and fabricate a funny idea. I just tell a story of my parents closing all the lights off during trick or treaters when they come to the house and be like, "Everybody, get down! Everybody, shh, shh." You know what I mean? Like just telling how immigrant refugees respond to trick or treaters coming in devil outfits is funnier than a random idea about a car idea I may want to tell. You know?
Yeah, that is very funny. So that is very funny. That leads to my next question. Well, actually, I have two more questions. Do you feel like your environment, let's say your non-immigrant environment, well, here in my podcast, immigrant for me is anyone coming from a new country that want to leave permanently. But I guess here we made a little stereotype difference here with immigrants by non-Western countries. But do you feel like once you started showing more your personality as an immigrant, do you feel like people were like, "Oh my God, is he just coming out now because you were hiding so much of that side of you before?" Were they surprised? For example, me, that happened to me. I decided I wanted to fit in so much, so I was hiding so many things, and some of them were curious because I'm from Haiti in the Caribbean, and there's a huge community of Haitian here in Montreal. So they were asking me questions like, "Oh, my other Haitian friend did that. Like, do you do the same?" So they were curious about it to find similarities with my culture, but I was hiding as much as I can because I wanted to fit in. But once I decided to stop playing that game and hiding myself who I was, because I was also searching for myself as well as like a young kid, everybody goes through that. But they were surprised, and I lost so many friends too because they were like they can't deal with that new identity of mine, but it just had been my identity for so long, but hidden. Do you feel that your
Exactly. Yeah.
environment?
That's
Huh?
exactly my life. What you just described.
Yeah,
Exact.
yeah.
That's pretty much what I'm saying. Like for so long, I wanted to be Canadian, and I thought if I could just convince them I'm as just Canadian as them, then I'll have
Mhm.
the smoothest, best life.
Exactly.
But now I realize that why you've been going against the grain. Just be who you are. You know who I am? I'm a
Hmm.
Sudani immigrant that was raised in a poor ass household. I was
Hmm.
raised like village style in the middle of Canada. I was raised as
Hmm.
if my house ha- were operating in the same as a village in Sudan in
Hmm.
Canada, and that's a
Yeah.
interesting dynamic. And just tell that story. Uh, that's the only story I can tell because that's the only life I lived. So trying to be something you're not, now I realize you can never succeed being something you're not. At the end of the day, there's only one of me. So there's only one of you. So being you is the best thing you can do.
Yeah, it's your superpower. It's because, yeah,
There's only
exactly.
one of you. So lean into who you are, what is funny to you, what is true to you, and that's the only way to succeed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Totally. So, well, that's awesome. That's really great to hear that because I, like you said, once you show your personality as well, you have that connection with other people, and then you're also realizing, like you mentioned earlier, that other people understand it. They're also going through the same thing because you often think you're the only one person going on that with the 7 billion people in the world, but I am the only person who's going through this, you know. But like, no, it's a bit unrealistic. Of course, there are so many people going through this. And as I'm doing the podcast as well, I also did like a TV show with other immigrants, and we were talking, and I was like, wow, we have so much similarities. And it was like immigrants from like other countries, like Eastern Europe countries, Caribbean, from Latin America countries, African countries, or countries in Africa, I should say, and like many different cultures. And we had that connection. It was the similarity we had together, but I never thought of it. I was like, they're not Haitian, or they didn't grow up here, or didn't immigrate when they were younger, because that too is different. Once you immigrate when you're like in much more younger age, like in your teenage years, compared to when you come here older, it's two different
Oh, totally
experience.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
It's totally different. And I realized that. So I was like, they came here when they were older, so they're still connected to their culture, they never understand me and everything. But I realized that there's so much more other things out there, and they don't have to be from the same country as you. As long as they're immigrant, they immigrated like at a young age, we're gonna understand each other, like no problem.
Yeah, absolutely. We have the same sensibilities and we saw the same thing. We got the same vibe of being an outsider living here and trying to
Hmm.
fit in, and then when you go
Yeah,
back to your home country, still feeling like an outsider there. So it's like you don't really fit
exactly.
in anywhere. It's this
Yeah.
so that's the and I think that's something I have to, and I'm only now in the last year seeing how much of a gift that really is, because I was born in
Hmm.
Sudan and I get and I remember a time where it's all I knew. And I remember a time going back to Sudan when I'm in grade 5, now 5 years in Canada. Or I went back to Sudan, now I'm in grade 10, 10 years in Canada. And I went back to Sudan, now I'm in university, now 15 years in Canada. I go back 5 years at
Hmm.
a time. And every time I look and I ask myself just how I feel there as compared to the locals, my cousins, do I feel,
Yeah.
every time I go back, I realize I feel more Canadian, but I
Uh-huh.
still love the idea. I feel more connected. It just feels more true because what's beautiful is at the end of the day, I always feel like a black guy in Canada, but when you're in
Hmm.
Sudan, I feel like I don't stick out at all. I'm just one
Yes.
in a million. And that is the most beautiful feeling when you're just
Everybody
hiding in
looks like
plain
me.
sight. Everyone looks like me. That is a beautiful feeling that people here or people that are in their native country just don't really understand when you are native to it.
Yeah.
To just always feel out of place here, like even if I'm with my closest friend, even if I'm with all like people that I'm like, I feel so Canadian. There's a room
Hmm.
with 14 white people. I'm one black guy. You stick out visually, you stick out visually. And visually, there's some things you deal with because there's a physical difference. And that's
Yeah.
not
And
the
then
case in Sudan. I could literally be walking and no one would ever look twice. But a white person in Sudan, the exact
yes.
same experience as me here, even worse than me here. You know what I mean?
That's where I was gonna go. Definitely, the opposite is something, and but I totally get you when you mentioned that once you go back to your home country, I would say, or your roots, you feel stranger. And I have that little mantra I have. nowhere is home or now here is home. So it's an article I wrote on how like we decide where our home is, whether we have one or we don't, because also the some of immigrants,
Or refugees,
they
yeah.
or yeah, or refugees, they also tell themselves like nowhere is home, like I'm a citizen of the world and stuff like that. But I do have other friends, for example, they're like, here's my home, I don't even want to go back to my roots, to my country. So it's a choice, and the fact of having that choice is a freedom.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. But I think if you totally deny that root, there's just
Yeah.
there's a knot you left untied within you just for the rest of your life,
Mm,
kind of, because you kind of
yeah.
know that your story begins somewhere else, and you're not willing to acknowledge it.
Yeah, it's true. You should never forget where you come from, because that's just how you started. And some of them don't deny the roots, but they're like they won't go back to the country like in 5 or 10 years. It might be in 30 years for them.
Oh, if you ask me,
Yeah.
if you asked me 8 years ago, when are you going to Sudan next? I'd be like, "Psh, I'm not going to Sudan anytime soon." Now I'd
Yeah.
love to go to Sudan as soon as I can. The older I
You
get,
see?
the
Yeah.
more I'm like, man, that's
That
just
too.
a
When I was
different way of living completely. I'd love to
that is
go and just break from this Canadian thing and go check that back out.
yeah. Yeah, that is totally true, because when I was younger, I would rather go like on vacation somewhere else. I was like, I already know this country. Like, I want to go somewhere else. I want to travel, like a place I don't know. That was my mentality. But as we get older, you're 100% right. You're like, I want to go back home, get the sun out. And especially if we have the sunny country, we definitely want to go back.
Absolutely, yeah. And like if it's a country that's not super industrialized like Sudan, uh
Hmm.
the thing you don't really realize that is amazing, when you go to Sudan and you go to the villages, when you look at
Hmm.
the stars there at night, it does not compare with here. You realize just how much light pollution is here in these like super industrial first world countries, so to speak. When you
Hmm.
are out in the country of Sudan and you look up at, you see so much. It's so beautiful. It's just it's breathtaking. When you look up at night, it's like
Hmm.
the stars, it's like you see the whole universe. It's incredible. I miss that.
Wow, that must be incredible.
I miss
You
that.
should you should take a picture of that next time and post it on your Instagram page so people like me can see.
Yeah, but it's shooting the night sky is one of those things that in the moment it looks
Very hard.
amazing, but when you take a picture of it, it never looks the same. It's like taking a picture of a sunset on your phone. You see it a month later, and you're like, I never shared this with anyone or anything because it looked so
But
nice that night, but right now it just looks like any random picture, you know?
you have to take it in the beginning of the sunset and with portrait mode. Then you're gonna have yourself a good picture at least.
You ever go to a concert and you take a video of the act while you're in there, and then when you look at it after, the sound is all messed up, and you're like, I'll never
Yeah.
send this to anybody. It's like, what was the point of recording this even?
Yeah, you're totally right. You're totally right. So, well, I don't have any more questions. I think that was a really awesome conversation. I really enjoyed it. I hope you did too.
Yeah, I've had a
But
blast.
do you have anything you want to add, or some tips you want to share with the audience? Also, if you want to talk more about your podcast, so they can also follow you.
I mean, the podcast is the vibe that I just gave here. We don't really, that's what I'm saying. I like that you keep it structured and just kind of talk about my podcast. I have a guest on. We just go live. Sometimes we talk very specific immigrant stuff. Some we talk about whatever we talk about. So
Mhm.
come
That's
out,
good
check
too.
that
Yeah.
out. It's comedy oriented, so there's going to be a lot of laughter. Check it out, the immigrant section. But from my end, just if you whatever you're doing in life, especially if it's a creative endeavor, just lean into yourself, lean into who you naturally are. Because so long I would sit there, like I said, and try to come up with the funniest ideas, and they would not hit nearly as close as if I just took the camera and showed a scenario of my mom being like, "Why'd you get McDonald's?" And I will make you,
Mm.
I will make you burger. I will make you burger here. You know what I mean? Like those videos get 100 people being like, "Yo, that's my mom. That's my life." Whereas a funny spoof of Fast and the Furious you may think is hilarious in your head, it's funny,
Uh-huh.
but people need things to relate to, and that goes way
It's not
outside of comedy.
authentic.
Be
It's not
yourself.
authentic, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just be yourself. I was running away from myself for so long, and now I'm
Mm.
just finally learning to just okay, who am I? And leaning into it as hard as possible and magnifying it.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Anik. I appreciate you having me on.